So guys, okay, I absolutely have to say I love those glasses. I'm like sitting here and I'm like ogling, like, oh my gosh. And don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. Okay, so if you're wondering who the heck we are Queen Pin and the Wingman. So yes, the Wingman changes his glasses all the time. You know, it's like he's giving us the reverse Clark Kent syndrome.
I'm
Oh,
getting
are
old.
you
I gotta have some
serious?
glasses on in case you hit me up on something because we don't take notes. I don't. But I mean,
You
I
know, we
gotta.
don't really take notes. We don't really take notes.
No, this is all
So
off the cuff. But if in case you do hit me with something, I'll be like, oh shit, let me get on Google. Let me do some research. I gotta pretend like I'll play it off like this, like
of course
so.
I knew she was going to say that. Yeah.
Oh,
So we're talking about good habits and bad habits. Now, we've all had those moments where we're like, yeah, we're off the rails.
yeah,
And I think one of the shocking things to you was when I said I had been 400 pounds.
it's crazy.
And
That's so
I
crazy.
actually, at that point, had to realize that I needed to take charge of what I was doing,
Yes.
what I was eating. Um, and for those of you that listen to CQP moments, you know, I love to cook. I've always said if I could build a house that was mostly a kitchen, I would build a bed in there. Um, so you know, that's my thing. And one day I really realized I was out of control when I'm watching the Food Network and I have a pot of chili going, I have a roast in the oven, I'm making a lasagna, and I'm working on a peach cobbler. Like seriously, it is the middle of the week and I am cooking like I'm cooking for Thanksgiving for
Right.
no reason. And
Right.
it made no sense. And I'm like, you've got to get, you know, and then one thing is when
Was
you're
that just for,
cooking,
I'm sorry, was that just for you and your son or just for you or was it for a family?
it was for my family, but it was just it was still too much. I mean, think about it. You're talking about something that's Thanksgiving worthy, which you
Mm-hmm.
know, unless you're having a whole bunch of people, it's going to be a lot of food.
Can I ask you one more thing? I don't mean to cut you off. Did you do that? You know, a lot of times, my mother's a cook. You know, her whole life, and I'm around a lot of Italians that cook. Did you do that to also validate like your worth because you love cooking and you want to share that experience? Like, right, it's a big part of your identity. It's not just that you're cooking to make yourself heavy. You're cooking to say, hey,
Right. And
right? I'm
that's
just
really what it
saying,
is. That was my identity. That was my
right?
identity. Because for those of you that haven't heard, and Rich, I'm pretty sure you haven't heard this story, the infamous cornbread story.
No.
Okay, so here's what happened. My mother wasn't the best cook. I ended up
Mm,
being the cook of the family because my mother, even though she raised three of us,
right.
her whole thought was, you guys ate, you guys didn't go hungry.
Yeah.
That's the way it was, you know. And I tell people I learned how to cook part of meals from my grandmother and the other portion from
Sure.
my father.
Right.
So, you know, my father wasn't lacking in anything, you
Mm,
know, so that was never the issue. But it was just one of those things of I knew how to do it all. So when she realized she liked eating my food, she was like, you know what? You cook, I'll be your sous chef, I'll clean, you let me know what you're doing, what you're making. I will make sure the food is there, ready, you know,
yeah. The
thought out,
passing of
whatever you
the
need.
spoon, as they would say in
Right.
Italian.
Yeah.
Right. You're passing the spoon.
Right. So she's just like, okay, you know, so that became my identity, as
Yeah.
you said. But one of the things I realized was I never liked my grandmother's cornbread.
Okay.
So I was like, I have to figure out how to do this.
Mm,
And I'm one of those people, my family's always taught this way. If you need to find out something, you go to the source. And
mm.
everybody's like, okay, well, yeah, for a lot of things, the source is Google. But my thought was, I need to know how to make authentic Southern cornbread from a Southerner. And I
Gotcha.
got this recipe super easy and I ran with it. And I was like, you know what? It was that day, it was just a little too large.
Yeah.
So I started sharing with neighbors.
Mm.
The next thing I know, the next day, right before dinner, my neighbor's knocking on my door. Are you making cornbread tonight? And I'm like,
Right.
well, I have the ingredients so I can.
Mm-hmm.
So I like make, since I essentially made the cornbread for him, like we took a little bit and then I gave him the rest.
Right.
He had another neighbor, and guys, this is pre-pandemic, pre-quarantine, so don't flip out.
Right.
So he had another neighbor at his house,
Mm-hmm.
and this neighbor says, well, can I have some? He gives that neighbor some. So the next day after that, this neighbor knocks on my door
Mm.
and says, can you make more cornbread?
Wow.
So, but the first neighbor, neighbor A,
Yeah.
is coming in from work. He's like, you're making cornbread? So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I went from essentially, and I love cast iron skillets for those that don't know.
Mm.
I went from cooking in a cast iron skillet to going to a half pan, the aluminum half pan,
Right.
to now making a full size pan.
Right.
Well, I made cornbread every day, literally every day, no matter what else I was making for
Right.
2 months,
Wow.
to the point where I was actually telling them, like, you know what? Hey, if you want it, you have to buy it. I would come home and find groceries in front of my door, like the cornmeal is there, buttermilk is there. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, that's a sign.
so it was like, okay, I even had someone that was like, I called a friend down in South Carolina and they're sending me up some Southern cornmeal. I'm like,
Uh, yeah. What's
so
funny is they could take your recipe and do it themselves, but a lot of times, as you know, when something's right, you don't even want to touch it, right? You don't even, because you know it's probably most likely not going to be as good. Um, you know, it's like everybody else. Like you go to any restaurant you love, or any family member who cooks specialty dishes. You don't want to learn how to do them a lot of times because you just love them doing it. You love not only eating it, the person who cooked it loved you loving it. It becomes like a camaraderie, right? A friend, like a bonding moment.
right, right. So I'm like, okay. But after 2 months, I was finally like, you know what? I have to go on a cornbread hiatus. Like, I am not doing cornbread. We are not doing this. You guys have to find another meal, another dish, another
Right.
something.
That's funny.
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
that's how the cornbread went out of control. But it and I found that with other things, and I became that person. I even became that person for the children of the building. I became, because for those that don't know, I live in a 54 family building.
mm,
So I became the cookie lady. I became the lady that made cakes. So that was who I was.
yeah. And you loved
You
it
know,
probably. Let's face
yeah,
it. They loved you and you loved serving them. I mean, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. And that was the one thing, because people would ask me, well, why do you do this? And it's like, because I love to see people enjoy my food.
Yes, of course.
And that was the thing, was even on the days when there weren't a lot of people, guess what? I still had to eat. And
Hmm.
I'm one of those people, I don't like food to go to waste.
Right. I get
So
it.
it's like, okay. And I realized, you know, you, one of the things, and I know your mom probably told you this, is after you cook, you get a little tired. So you're cooking and you're sitting
Yeah.
and you're making these huge meals
Yes,
and you're
of
just
course.
sitting. So you're not moving as much as you should be.
Yeah, it's kind of condensed and you're dealing with heat. Let's call it for what it is. And it's hard work. It's mentally and physically. I mean, the bending over, the thinking about it, every ingredient has to be perfect. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but there's a lot that goes into that. Every ingredient, the amounts you're supposed to put in. I get it.
Right. So and that was, for me, that was the thing, was the not moving, the eating, the cooking. I mean, and at this point on any given day, I was not just cooking for my family,
Mhm.
I was cooking for 3 or 4 families.
Sure. That's amazing. Well, that sounds like a good habit, unless it makes you go broke.
Right. And
Yeah.
it wasn't the thing that was making me go broke. It was just that now there's always food involved.
So you
Everything
were
has
were you
food.
eating a lot of the food with them, or were you eating a lot of
Right.
the
Right.
leftovers as well?
Right.
Is that what happened? So
Right.
you started,
Yeah.
instead of just cooking for you and your son, now we're cooking bigger portions. We're gonna have more leftovers, and we're gonna be eating maybe more meals, or maybe before you didn't cook for everybody else. You take a day off here or there, but before you know it, you're like cake, bread, cookies, whatever.
Right. 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 And I mean, the funniest thing was even the Christmas cookie story. I had baked everything for Christmas because that's the way I was taught.
Sure.
Baked everything for Christmas. And I realized I'm going to make Christmas cookies and don't have any more butter, but I
Hmm.
have a whole block of cream cheese.
Mm.
So found a recipe where I could substitute cream cheese for butter.
Wow.
These things essentially came out tasting like little cheesecake cookies. Only problem was I now have little kids knocking on my door again saying, "Do you have any more cookies? I just gave you like 10 cookies. What are you talking about?" Well, my mom ate them.
Yeah, I believe it. Your house
So
just
yeah.
kind of becomes a lot of, well, my mother included, you with my aunts, my uncles, my cousins and friends and everybody. My mother cooked for the archdiocese, a lot of the priests, and she was amazing. She'd have, I've discussed it before, she'd have St. Joseph tables, and they would sell out gymnasiums. There'd be lines wrapped around the building. That's how much
Wow.
food. But your home becomes a restaurant, kind of, right?
Right.
Everybody, my
Right.
mother
And
would be
that's
cooking
really
for
what it
everybody and
is.
be like, all right, kitchen's closed, with everybody coming in and out. I'm thinking, who yells kitchen's closed? What do we know? But my mother is an amazing cook. So everybody always wanted to come there and eat. And if not, please bring desserts. Please make it homemade. Can you do whatever you can bring? To this day? She just did it a couple days ago. But back to good habits and bad habits, I think a lot of times we can learn from the bad habit, right? And then make it a good habit. And I think, you just getting control of that, I think you realized you love
Right.
cooking for everybody,
Right. And yeah. And that's
right?
really
And
what it
maybe
was. Yeah.
portion control, right? A
I
little
had to
bit.
learn portion control. One of the things was I always tell people I can't be a vegan because I love cheese too much.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
but also learning things like, what to substitute for what. Um, so I've also gone very, very plant-based. I don't do everything plant-based, guys. Yes, I do
Mhm.
love a good piece of fried chicken, but I'm not sitting there and saying, okay, well, let's just fry everything. And
Right.
that was one of the things was learning. And again, going to the people who know, because I had an
Yes.
amazing support team.
Mhm.
I had an amazing coach who said, hey, you know what? You want that fried chicken, go have the fried chicken, because if not, you're going to overdo it.
Mm.
But get back on the ball. Are you on the ball? You
Mhm.
know, and that's what I had to do. I had to learn. I had to learn to change. And even as recently as I would say last June, one of the biggest changes in my life was no soda.
It's huge. I love it too, but it's huge with a lot of
No
sugar. I
soda,
get
no
it.
soda, no seltzer.
Yeah.
So I haven't, and even cutting out a lot of the caffeine. Um,
Yeah.
so I've done a lot of that. Like the funny thing is I've always known I had an adverse reaction to caffeine. So
Mhm.
I would stay away from things like coffee or espresso or cappuccino,
Mm.
but not thinking, hey, don't drink a Pepsi.
Right. And don't drink
So
numerous amounts of Pepsi. Also, don't drink them
right.
late at night, or don't drink, a lot of,
And that was
it
the
could
other
be a,
thing was,
right.
yeah, that was the other thing was one of the hugest changes for me was not a food-based change, but my sleeping habit change.
Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure.
And it was like, my doctor actually finally sat down with me and said, okay, you said you went to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
You have to be here at 8, which meant you only got 5 hours of sleep, and you're going to do something else after this. You're not giving your body enough time to rest.
Right. Do you think
And
eating all that food though is giving you more energy or
yeah, and
making you uncomfortable?
yeah, that was
Right?
the other thing. Because one of the things that I started to notice was, okay, I ate dinner,
Mm,
but now because I'm up at 12, I'm hungry again.
of course. It's an addiction.
And then, yeah, so now I am, let's say, even though I'm baking them, I'm making French fries, which who the heck is making French fries at midnight? But these were the things that I was doing.
Yeah. It's there's so many different levels though. It's not only that you're cooking, that's part of your creativity, right? You kind of like that a little bit. You love the food. Also, the smell is involved, the activities involved. Maybe your son wants some fries too. You think you're doing it for other people when it comes to food. There's all these kind of different components.
Right. And one of the other things is, Rich, the craziest thing that I figured out, I love candles. I love scented candles,
Mm-hmm.
but not realizing that holiday scented candles are mostly food based.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so you have like things like pumpkin pie or pecan
Sure.
waffle, which are now making you go, I want waffles, I want pumpkin pie. So now I'm like cooking pumpkin pie when I have no business
Yes.
making a pumpkin pie. So I had to learn to cut a lot of that out. Like, okay, well,
Yeah.
let's go with the cranberry, candle, or let's go
Yeah.
with the sea scented candle, citrus, something that's not making me say, hey, you know what? I want to make a chocolate cake, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of triggers there, and people
And
underestimate when you
yeah,
have a food addiction. And it's just very, if you don't have a food addiction, just say you go in the movie theater, you smell popcorn, I want it. You go, you don't necessarily want a donut. You're going in for a coffee and you just go into Dunkin' Donuts or wherever you hit that donut smell hits you and you're like, I'm getting a donut. Those are,
and that's really what it was. And one of the
yeah.
craziest things is people don't realize I hate brownies. I
Mm,
hate brownies. And that was what started helping me break the habit as well was I said, you know what? I have no problem passing a brownie in the store. I have
hmm,
no problem passing a brownie
sure.
in the store.
Because
So
you're not
there
interested.
should be no reason that I can pass other things that
Mhm.
I like.
Right.
So that's what I started doing. Like, you know what? No, I don't need this. I don't need that. And I started cutting out things, but that wasn't the only area, honestly, that I realized because everyone knows I am the coupon queen pin. But I actually had a time where my couponing was a little wonky as well.
Right. Yeah. Well,
And
listen, real fast. I don't care who you are. We all have addictions. I don't give a
yeah,
shit
we do.
if you're fitness, you may be obsessed with fitness. I'm not saying you kill yourself doing it. You may be obsessed with eating well. You may be obsessed with cigarettes, alcohol. I believe no matter what, we all have these addictions. And
Right.
like you didn't start off being addicted to coupons or food a lot of times,
No, I
but
didn't. I didn't.
right. So like
It started,
couponing,
yeah,
yeah, that's why I
yeah,
wanted to mention this to you. I'm like, people don't realize they get obsessed with something. You're like, oh, I'm obsessed with coupon saving money. Well, before you know it, it's interfering with your relationships, or that's all you're thinking about, all you're doing,
yeah,
right?
yeah, because actually, there were actually two things that happened. So, of course, everyone starts off couponing. My story starts off like most. I saw, extreme couponing, wanted to try it. Honestly, I flopped, failed my first time out.
Mm,
No lie, I went $200 over budget trying to figure out how. But again, I went back to some couponing experts and got the goods and started working with her weekly and said, hey, let's do this.
right.
But now, as I'm starting to know what I'm doing, I'm starting to save money. First thing that happened was because I'm now getting my weight under control.
Right.
I'm saying I don't want to buy food things because I don't want to have them around.
Right. Hold on. I got the little
And
one. Hold on. I love this.
uh-oh,
Hold on. What are you trying to get in there? Come here.
uh-oh.
Here she comes, the boss. Go ahead. I'm sorry. She's in and out. And go ahead. Come here, big mouth.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead.
So one of the things, and the reason I first started couponing was I needed shampoo and conditioner.
Mm,
And I remember going to Rite Aid. I was feeling a little out of it. And
Right.
the one thing that my grandmother always told me was, when you're feeling bad, wash your hair. You
Right.
have to wash them. It comes from, South Pacific. You have to wash the man out of your hair.
Yes, I
So
love it. Hold on, I'm shutting the door with this crazy woman. Last time it was you with the dog. Now today it's with me.
yeah. So, I said, okay, I'm gonna wash my hair, and I realized I have nothing. It's like you hear the air, and it's like, crud, I have no shampoo.
Right.
So I said, you know what? If I have enough conditioner, I'll just mix the shampoo and the conditioner. Same thing, that air sound, like, oh man. So I wrapped my hair up really quickly. I said, okay, I can go and get, like, I unfortunately, what those that don't know, the thing that had me kind of down was my mother had just passed.
Mm,
So everything was kind of wonky for me. Everything was kind of up in the air. And
right.
at that point, literally, I had $5 to my name. We had
Wow.
food in the house. We had everything we needed. It wasn't like bills weren't
Right.
paid or anything, but it was just like, okay. I was so set. I was
Mm,
so set. I had an Anna moment. I was
right.
like, I am going to wash my hair.
Right.
So I went to my closest Rite Aid, and I actually had two coupons, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to use these coupons. And I saw this deal in the store, and I was like, I'm going to make this work. Now, not only do I have three sets of shampoo and conditioner,
Mm,
they give me back $3 in points or retail money for Rite Aid. And I'm like, oh, they gave me money.
mm,
Plus, I have $2 left over. Hey, it's like ding, 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 light bulb moment, you
right.
know?
Right.
So at that point, I'm like, okay. But now, because that was such a very good feeling for me, what's the one thing I keep buying? Shampoo and conditioner.
Right. Right. Yeah.
To the point where my son is like, Mom, each of us only has one head.
Right. Right.
Like, how much shampoo and conditioner do you
Sure.
need? So I actually started giving it away.
Mm,
I started giving it away because I was like, you know what? It's taking over. I started giving it away.
right.
And I realized, I said, you know what? You don't have to do this. But I still kept couponing, and I was couponing for other things. I was like, you know what? We can figure out how to make this work. If
Yeah.
I can stockpile this much shampoo and conditioner, I can stockpile other things.
Mm,
For those that don't know, my son has had eczema since he was younger. So one of the things was always making sure he had moisturizer, hydrocortisone, those types of things.
right.
So I started, of course, couponing for his stuff. Not a problem. But one day I say to myself, okay, I'm going to do a big couponing haul. And unfortunately, this day I say to myself, you know what? I can spend a couple more hours, not thinking I was actually spending bill money.
Mm, gotcha.
And I had gotten, it wasn't, for to be honest, it wasn't a large amount, but it was the fact that I am so on top of things. Now I'm spending money that I shouldn't be touching. And
Right.
now I have to switch things around
Mm,
to, and it's like, you get to the point where this becomes an addiction. And I said to myself, I can't do that again.
right.
I can't get to the point where I am touching bill money for things. And at this point, I'm couponing so much. I'm in there like every other week, every other day. I didn't need anything.
Yeah. There's a fine line there, isn't there, too, between couponing and then hoarding, right? Isn't there
Right.
that kind of because,
And that's really what it is, everybody goes, I want to build a stockpile, but there is such a fine line between stockpiling
yeah.
and hoarding.
Yeah, I'm a minimalist, so I want to get rid of everything, but I am around a lot of people that like to hoarder. And it could be squishmallows, it could be shampoos, it could be makeup with women, and with men, it can be whatever it is. It could be fishing rods, hypothetically. A lot of times
Right. And
we
that was, yeah, and that was
a
the
lot of
thing. So I
yeah.
began to I began to starting to, again, this is where I start to give things away, because now I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, I don't need now. For those that don't know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really a big makeup person, but
Mm-hmm.
when Rich said, "Hey, you have to be on camera," it was like this face cannot go on without any makeup on. So I always have makeup.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one of the things. For those that don't know, couponing, makeup, and small, believe it or not, makeup and snacks are what we call filler items.
Mm-hmm.
And those are what actually bring your money or your out of pocket down.
Right.
So, because again, I was determined, no, we're not putting food in this place, we're doing other things. I had makeup that I didn't really need to use. So I would go to my friends and I
Mm-hmm.
would have like two, three like shopping bags full of makeup and say, here. And they're like, well, how much do you want for it? I'm like, no,
Right.
take whatever you want. Like, I can't use this.
Right.
I have what I need for me. I can't use this, you know,
Yeah.
and they're like, wow. And I said, yeah. And this would happen like every few months. And I said, you know what? I'm doing too much.
You're back to like I talk a lot of times about people who have bad habits and then quit a bad habit and start up another one. So a lot of people go to
Right,
rehab, as you know, will quit alcohol, they take on smoking. They may quit
right,
alcohol, take on gambling, just saying, or they take quit alcohol and now they're replacing it with eating like junk food or something else.
right, right. And that was the thing was, you know, it became, but it started making me realize, it started making me look and take a look at myself and say, hey, you know what, this is this is not going to work, this is not
Mhm.
the proper relationship. Because for those of you that don't know, my local CVS, I literally have an office. Like, they don't, if I'm in the store, there's a register that they don't use because they know that that's where all my stuff is going.
Wow.
I know everyone by name.
Moderation is the key, you know. You know what, too, and
Yeah,
I've seen this too, where say a lot of guys, I'll just use working out, right? So they want to quit a bunch of bad habits, eating junk food, fast food, whatever. They start working out. So they take that money that they spent there and now they're spending it on a lot of supplements. Not only are they spending too much money on supplements, they're taking too many supplements. Now they're, instead of again helping themselves, they're hurting themselves. Maybe even drinking too many high calorie smoothies or, you know, all these different types of things. We have to kind of take our time, I think, a lot of times when it comes to
right,
breaking a bad
right.
habit, right? And you know, a lot of us, you don't need 3, 4 cups of coffee, and you don't need to necessarily quit coffee entirely. How about one glass? How about a glass and a half? Call it a day. And then instead of having another coffee, maybe finding another drink that's healthy, that's just as delicious. You're gonna have to research it and take your time to find that. But you know, and it's just like you're saying. I mean, it's just it's not hard because I think a lot of times everything you meant to do, I really believe, was to be helpful with habits. Yours, you started cooking not just for yourself, you loved cooking to for others and they loved it. And
Right.
right. And the next thing you know, you're gaining a lot of weight, right? And I've gone through that goofing around with my grandparents and my mother a lot of times. Like I'm like, you made our family members obese. No one's really obese. But my point being is because they always made it feel like you're never eating enough or they're always cooking,
Right.
right? Bigger, more portions. It's like a joke. But if you, some of my cousins did overeat, and I'm like, because you're telling them to overeat, right? You're
Right.
making
And
them,
and that's the
you're
thing is, like, you have, because my grandmother was a big food pusher.
exactly,
My
exactly my
grandmother,
point.
and for those of you, yes, that is a term, food pusher,
I never
because
heard
it's the
that.
person that's always offering you, like, here, baby, are you hungry?
Yes.
And at first you're saying no, but then, you know, you have the grandmother that's like, you're so skinny, what's going on? Why are you
Right.
doing this? And you're like, okay, well, maybe I should need to eat. Or you'll say, let me eat, so stop asking me.
Right.
And that's really what it is like, we need to know when to say no. We need to know when to just
Absolutely.
stop. And that's really what it is one of those things of, find other things you can do. And one of the things I realized, hey, I love giving.
Yeah.
So if I'm getting a whole bunch of items for free, Why
Mhm.
not give them away to people? Why not say, hey, you know what? Do you need, you know, at the beginning of quarantine, one of the biggest things everybody's looking for hand soap and hand sanitizer.
Sure.
I was able to say, here, to every neighbor on my floor, here, now you have extra hand soap, now you have extra hand sanitizer. And everybody's like, are you short? No, here.
That's
Why?
wonderful.
Because we all need it.
Yeah,
I
that's
have
why you
more,
got it. That's why you got it, right? Not just for yourself, but ever if someone
right,
needed it, right? I mean, that's what a
right,
couponing in again.
right.
It,
And that was the thing, was
yeah.
because, one of the craziest things was everybody's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if you remember the whole, there's no toilet paper.
Mm,
I didn't have to buy toilet paper because I had just gone before they realized that it was a thing. And I was like, okay, so I will share some. And for whatever reason, no one ever wanted toilet paper at this point.
mm,
But I had enough that to get us straight through quarantine.
yeah, that's awesome. And you're in New
And
York. You're not
yeah,
like Florida.
and so it was like I had enough just and I mean, for those of you that know, it's just me and Neo, me and my son.
Hmm.
So we just, had enough to make sure that we got through quarantine. And it was like, okay.
Yeah, that's great. Too, you're hoarding to help. Right. I know that sounds crazy, but a lot of things that I think people underestimate, because I used to love eating. I was like 250 pounds. I was always eating and lifting a lot of heavy weights. A couple things you can't sometimes escape if you have certain addictions. One I felt more than anything was food, especially if your identity becomes wrapped up in food. Anytime anyone knew me, it was about, still to this day, let's go out for dinner, Rich. Let's go to lunch. Like yesterday was lunch with my buddy. Let's go for drinks, even if it's let's meet up for cigars. Let's eat. People come over, they want to order food with me. I come over there, they are either going to cook for me or they're going to order pizza. They're going to order. It's always about food. And I don't, any restaurant you go to or any place you go to a mall, there is food. You're never going to escape food. Not to mention we have to eat it constantly. It's hard. And same with kind of hoarding or couponing. Let's face it, anywhere you go, you're shopping again. And, I used to say that with gambling too. A lot of times, if you don't want to gamble, it's almost impossible because anytime you put a TV on or go to someone's house or your house or put the internet on, it's talking about sports, even if you don't want to. It,
Right. And
it's,
I think that was the craziest thing was because I never bet on sports, but this year it was like during the Super Bowl, because for those of you that don't live in New York State, we didn't have online betting.
mm,
And right before the Super Bowl came on, they just legalized online betting.
wow. Right.
And DraftKings was like, put down $1 and whatever happens, you'll win $100. And I was like, I should put down $1. And I was like, I don't bet on sports. Why would I do that?
It's
But
funny.
it's because they're putting it in your face and they're putting it in your face and they're
Yeah.
putting it in your face and in your face. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to put this dollar down. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Even though it's bringing me back $100, and I know people are probably going, Queen Pin, it was the easy $100, but no, for what?
It could start something sometimes that you don't want
And
to go
that
down
was
that
my
rabbit
thought.
hole, especially
That
if you
was
have
my
a,
thought.
some people do have stronger addictions, I think, than others. But like I said, I think a lot of us are addicted to many different things throughout our life. But even with food, again, even if you go back to my youth, a lot of times, yeah, you ate some appetizers, maybe here and there. But if you look at even going out now, and I tell people, if you want to lose weight, it's about portion control, but also just you don't need to order appetizers. If you do, split them. You don't have to order your own dessert, split dessert, maybe split your entree. I don't know, maybe get more vegetables, but you know,
Okay, here's one of the key things that I have found going out, and this is just like a girls' night thing. Um, Instead of ordering food, we would just order the appetizers and
yeah,
share them.
yep, and call it a night and just have drinks.
Yeah, appetizers and drinks. And we were, unfortunately, but this was before quarantine, before the pandemic, we
Mm-hmm.
would go to Applebee's and we would sit and and they always had happy hour. So it
Sure.
was like, okay, well, what are you getting? Okay, I'm getting the mozzarella sticks, I'm getting the buffalo wings, I'm getting the this, and I'm getting the that. So
Yeah.
everybody, and we knew we would share it, and everybody ordered their own drinks.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, you didn't have to have, except for the one time we did take somebody out and they ordered food and everybody's looking at them like, really? Why are you doing this?
They're
Now we
probably
have to wait for
starving.
your entree.
Right.
But yeah.
Funny.
But I mean, that is one of the things that we learn, even doing portion control is, hey, you know what? Instead of going for the entree,
Mm-hmm.
there are salads on appetizers. There are, and a lot of our comfort foods are on appetizers. So if you're sharing them
Yeah.
as opposed to saying, hey, let me just eat this whole order of buffalo wings. No.
Right.
So
Or
yeah.
skip appetizers and share your entrees. I'm just saying if you want to go that route, like all of a sudden you want
Yeah,
ribs
yeah, but
or,
share the
or
food.
whatever. Yeah.
Share the food. Share the food. It's a really amazing thing to do.
Yep.
So yes, this is how I've been switching my bad habits for good habits. And as you can see, guys, no, I am no longer 400 pounds. And no, I don't have a million bottles of shampoo right now. And no, I am not paying my bills so I can coupon. So,
Right. That's awesome.
so yes.
I think we should call this the Coupon Queen Pins good and bad habits. Because something like that, I'll call it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's one of those things. I enjoy being transparent with you guys because one of the things is we always think we're in it by ourselves, and we're not.
Exactly.
We're not, like
Exactly.
you said, Rich, we all have some sort of something, some sort of vice, some sort of something
It
that
could
we're
be,
doing that's a
and
little
it
whack.
could be work, right? It could be maybe even over parenting. I think a lot of people don't want to say they're just too obsessed. And I'm not saying they're bad parents, but sometimes if all you're doing is being a parent in your life, or people that get obsessed with being a parent, I should say, or being obsessed with being even in a relationship where you don't realize it's kind of an addiction and you kind of got to get a balance on a
Yeah,
lot of things.
yeah,
It could be fixing your car. It could be whatever it is.
yeah. I mean,
Cooking,
we have workaholics, we have
everything.
helicopter parents. So
Oh
guys,
yeah.
don't think you are the only one. You're not the only one. We all have some sort of vice. And as Clarissa Burt said to me, no one has perfect self-esteem. No one is perfect.
You got that.
So don't think you're the only one.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's it right now for me. Anything you have to say?
No, I let you run with this one. We had a lot to cover with you. That's why I'm going to call this. You're good replacing good habits or something like that. I'll figure out the title, but it was good. You explained a lot to us, and I think that's an amazing story. And like I said, I think a lot of people, when we think bad habits, we always kind of think the worst in things like smoking, drinking, gambling, sex, or
Right,
whatever, work. But a lot of people start with habits that are kind of good and they kind of go bad, but you can kind of
right,
come back and still make them good, just kind of get a balance. And that's kind of what you had to do.
right, exactly.
You didn't you didn't start cooking with the intention of becoming obese. I think a lot of people even smoke a cigarette or a cigar, not with the intention of having to smoke a pack a day or one every day, but it happened.
Right,
And you got to back off and say, hey, I kind of, this went from just something fun to do to something destroying me. And
right. So
yeah.
yeah. So,
All
but
right, that's
guys,
it.
that's it right now for Queen Pin and the Wingman.